going on? Welcome to another episode of Catching Up, where we catch up with some of your favorite former past athletes. And today, who do we have with us?
We have Frank Bush, the Frank Bush. This guy's a pillar of my career, how I got started, and taught me the ropes from as soon as I got with the Oilers. So Frank has been around for a long time. He's a very important man in the industry as far as the NFL. Frank is an awesome coach. Been coaching for 100 years with all that gray on his face, but who knows? But good to have you, Frank. Good to have you here, Frank.
Good to be here, man. It's always good to catch up with some of my old friends, man. I appreciate all the nice talk right there. I'm just a guy trying to figure it out. Yeah, give me a few more years, maybe I'll figure out what I'm doing.
So let's take a step back just to bring everyone up to speed on your background. You played at NC State, and then you were drafted by the Oilers.
Yep.
And then,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, your career was cut a little bit short because of injury, and then that's when you dove into coaching.
Yeah. Had a brief stint, about 5 years of scouting, just trying to stay close to the business. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to be a coach. All the coaches I knew had been fired, so I thought maybe scouting would be an easier path. But I finally, after about 5 years, got the coaching bug and got into coaching.
Awesome, and that's pretty much what you've been doing ever since your playing days.
Right.
Yeah. Just, again, like I said, trying to figure out this whole football thing. So many different, players that come across my past, guys like John Henry, who have kind of molded and shaped me, almost made me quit, but I hung in there. But no, it's been a crazy path, but a great path. I wouldn't want to do anything else. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Just, still trying to figure out how to get the next win.
So bring us up to speed on where you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, currently I'm with the Tennessee Titans. Go Oilers. Over time, I just got here this year, but I was with the Falcons for the last 3 seasons, with the New York Jets before that, the Miami Dolphins before that. Let's see, the LA Rams / St. Louis Rams before that, Tennessee Titans before that, Houston Texans before that, Arizona Cardinals, Denver Broncos, and all the way back to the Houston Oilers. So this is my 39th season, so almost every team in the league I've shared a logo with. So not quite all of them.
Seasoned vet. That's all. That's what you call that. That's what you call that. Well, that's awesome, Frank. So just moving right along, obviously going to ask you some random questions. Who was the most fun player as a coach being around? Because, you've been around a lot of different people from D'Amico Ryan and whatnot. As far as player, who was the most fun player being around and being able to coach?
I've had so many different guys. I guess everybody kind of brings their own particular flavor to the table. I mean, when you just look back on guys like Joe Bowden and Mike Barrow and all those guys, those were kids that were, kind of, rambunctious, full of energy, full of talent. And those guys are always fun to coach because you could see the talent. You could see, just as they matured, how good of football players they were going to be. And, fast forward to Lamar Latham, who was a Mack truck, just waiting to go knock things out. And, it was always fun to coach him. And then go all the way to Denver when, I was dealing with Romanowski, and you talk about professionalism and being prepared and all those things. Man, that was a joy to coach him. And he really helped me in my career as much as anybody because he was a mature player when I got him. He had a reputation when I got him. And, it was at that point that I understood that as a coach, you got to provide tools. You just can't have a guy that's got great athleticism and whatnot. You got to provide tools. And, Romanowski kind of taught me that and just his preparation and then just his love of the game, the way he approached the game. It taught me, to kind of buckle down and be a lot more serious about kind of, skill set that I needed to bring to the table. And then you just keep going. There's just been so many other guys that have kind of helped me along the way, i.e. a young man out of Wake Forest named John Henry Mills that, came in with a lot of talent, and it was all over the place. And, more than anything, he understood who he was and what he was trying to get done. And you appreciate, I appreciated the quote unquote, the confidence, but at the same time, the ability to open up and learn a lot of football.
You talked about Romanowski. We talked recently with George
Coghill.
Coghill,
Mm-hmm.
and asked him
Mhm.
about Roma. And you always hear these stories about Romanowski, and he mentioned how intense he was. So it was very interesting to hear your perspective on him. Something that you really don't hear very often about him. How you know in tune he was. It sounds like,
Right.
and really trying to continue to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Y- Yeah, I've always said that, again, he taught me the whole preparation thing. He was always prepared. He didn't leave a stone unturned. Um, he had this kind of chip on his shoulder that, maybe people wouldn't see him as what he quite had the way he quite saw himself. So he was always prepared. And I tell everybody, that he was the most prepared player I ever coached. D'Amico Ryan's was the smartest guy I ever coached. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, bar none, he was probably the smartest guy that could take it from the sideline to the field. I mean, D'Amico's the kind of guy you give him half the call, he knows where you're going with it. He repeats the rest of the call to the defense
Mm.
because he's just that far ahead of it. So I would say he's the smartest guy, but Romanowski was probably the most prepared guy.
Okay. As far as being in different organizations, what was the best or the most memorable team you've ever been around?
Well, I have an affinity for the Oilers because it was
Correct.
my first team,
Correct.
my first foray into the NFL. And so, obviously, Mr. Adams and that whole group down there gave me an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And, I consider it a legitimate opportunity because I didn't feel like I came in highly touted at some other guys, but I got a chance to get on the field and play early as a rookie. They gave me that opportunity and fortunately I was able to take advantage of it. And then they doubled down by giving me an opportunity to move off the football field into the, scouting department and the coaching department. So obviously I have an affinity for this organization, the extension of this organization here.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Denver and being in Denver and being around Mike Shanahan and learning how to do it at a high level. Obviously, the things he learned from the 49ers. When I got to Denver, I understood, again, the preparation thing and how to operate at a high level. And we were fortunate enough to win the Super Bowl twice, and so you start to understand that this is how it should be done. This is what you aspire to be. And I learned how to basically cross all the T's and dot all the I's when I was with Mike Shanahan and that group. So both those two teams are my favorite teams. Obviously, there are other cities
Mm-hmm.
that are a lot fun cities, but when you talk about just teams and organizations, the Oilers and the Broncos are some of my favorites.
Right, that's good. That's good to hear right there because that's all you've heard about coming out of that Mike Shanahan tree, as far as how punctual and how organized they are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Who? This is really random. Who would you say was the best dressed player that you've ever been around? One with the most style, maybe.
There's a
Ooh,
lot of characters out
there's a lot of characters out there.
there.
Um, you know, Man, I would say, if I go back to Houston, uh, best dressed
Oh,
or
EG
just
for
differently
sure.
dressed, I would say EG for sure. You
Without a
start learning
doubt.
because he had his own particular style.
Yes.
That's
If
Ernest
you want to
Givens.
call it
Yes, sir.
best
That's Ernest
dressed,
Givens. Yes.
you want to say best dressed or maybe just the most different, but it was his own particular style. And then, when I was in Denver, we required our guys wear suits on the road, and Shannon Sharp always had something to reckon with
I've
when he
heard.
when he
I've
was.
heard.
I would say Shannon would be another guy that understood kind of the whole style thing.
So being around coaching and playing and players and whatnot, who's the most inspirational person that you can say? I know you mentioned Shannon Sharp. I know you mentioned Mike Shanahan. Most inspirational, I know Bill Romanowski. As far as the longevity and keeps you going, inspiration.
Well, it's funny because along the way you pick up stuff and you learn stuff from so many different guys.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that really kind of took me under his wing when I was a player was Butch Wolford. Butch was coming in from the Giants. He was an offensive player. I had a ton of respect for him, and he kind of took me under his wing and said, "Hey, look, I was with Lawrence Taylor. These are some of the things he did. Here's some stuff I learned from Lawrence, and." I'm not Lawrence Taylor, but if I could just, get some traits or still, something from Lawrence that I thought, well, that'd be big time. And, on top of that, book was just such a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Helped me learn about finances, how to operate, how to live in the city, how to, protect your money and all those things. So, I say Butch was a guy that was big time for me. Moving on, Robert Brazil, when I first got in the locker room, he was a guy that was on his way out, but he was a veteran guy that, kind of took care of us rookies for that first spring.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse Baker, and then just watching how Warren Moon operated. And John Henry, you know this.
Mm-hmm.
Warren Moon was a bona fide rock star when I was in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first of his type in the National Football League. He was the Michael Jordan of football.
Mm-hmm.
And just to watch how he operated, a level of humidity and whatnot, it just blew me away. So, I always kind of looked at him, how to kind of, judge the temperature and how to operate because he could have been so many other things, but what
Mm-hmm.
he was just a good dude trying to play football. And he was a bona fide rock star. He could go nowhere without people not recognizing who he was and and what he was all about. And he handled it so gracefully to me. So, those are some of the guys. My coaching influence, just as far as, kind of my style,
Mm-hmm.
everything resonates through Mike Shanahan and that whole Denver tree,
Okay.
just what I learned from those people in the building, just how to operate, how to, move a team, move an individual and move a group and move a team forward, all those lessons, all the way through. And, even you think about Gary Kubiak, who was in Houston,
Mm.
he was the same way. So all those lessons, from that tree,
Mm-hmm.
personnel wise, there's nobody better than Mike Holloway. That's why I learned how to
Mm-hmm.
recognize what a player looked like.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I learned how to don't look at all of John Henry's antics. Look at what he does on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you learn that from Mike. He had a keen eye for just talent evaluation and whatnot. And then my position coach was Floyd Reese. So, again, I got 40 years of this. I got 40 names, but,
Mm.
just those guys, they helped me along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You look at some of the older guys throughout the league, like John Wooden, Jimmy Ray Rhodes, all those guys were influences for me. I had a chance to, personally, meet and sit and talk with most of those guys, and you just try to pick up something. Those are people that have been in the league a long time, and if I plan on being in the league a long time, I needed to talk to them and figure out what they were doing and try to emulate some things. I failed miserably in a lot of areas, but there were a few things I learned along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Frank. So we always like to hear stories. You've been around the league for quite some time. You've got to have some stories that you could share.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some fun stories, something that we wouldn't expect, maybe.
Ah, well, there are tons of them, but in this era of being politically correct, which one can I tell?
Yeah, that is true.
Uh, I don't know. I was probably a story that eh, it's suspect at best, but you're just talking about one of our Denver teams. We go to play. We were playing the Falcons in the Super Bowl, and as tradition have it, you go through the week, and then on Thursday night the groups get together. They go out to have dinner. As John, the
Mm-hmm.
position groups get together
Mm-hmm.
for the Super Bowl. You kind of try to do it big. So we found a restaurant in Miami, and we go out to this restaurant. Mike Shanahan had told me unequivocally, have those guys back by midnight. This is Super Bowl week. We got to be back by midnight. And so we go down to a spot called Joe's Stone Crab, and we having a good time. Guys are eating and doing some other things, and we're having a great time. And somebody had this great idea that a friend of theirs had a yacht, and we are going to cruise to Miami Bay. It's only going to take a little while. We're going to cruise this bay, and then we'll be back, and we'll make it back up to Fort Lauderdale for by curfew. That'd be great. And so, sure enough, I'm the elder statesman in the room. I'm the voice of reason. I said, "Great, let's do it." So we get out there, we somewhere. I don't even know where we were, but we're on this cruise ship, and we got all these guys, and somehow or another, all these girls showed up on this boat, and now all of a sudden we out here in the middle of nowhere, and it's about 11:45, and we got no chance of making curfew. And so now I'm rounding up the troops. I got this captain trying to get this boat back, and we go and we probably get back to the hotel around, I'd say 1:30, two
Ooh.
o'clock in the morning, and no harm, no foul, nobody knew, nod, wink, and we go and the next day, Mike Shanahan was like, "How was your dinner and all those things?" I thought it was great, Coach. Everybody's safe with no problems with this, that, and the other. He said, "Yeah, what time did you guys get back?" I said, "It was close. We were a little bit late, but hey, it was close, but everybody got in okay and this, that, and the other." And then he says, "Hey, um, you know, if you're gonna stay out that late again, you just let me know." He said somehow or another he knew the whole story, but everybody got it, everybody was safe. But that's one of the safer stories I can tell that
Oh,
we kind of broke curfew the night before the couple of nights before the Super Bowl, but nothing bad really happened.
And that brings up a good point. We've asked some other guys that have played in the Super Bowl. How is it from a coaching perspective? How does your mentality shift from a regular season to going into the Super Bowl and everything involved with that?
Well, fortunately, I had a chance to do it twice. The first time it was just chaotic. Every day was chaos because in your mind, you reach the pinnacle, and boy, if you just don't screw it up, so you almost overbearing with the players. You start to do too many things. You got to make sure you dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and you just go overboard. And I just learned that after that first one, man, I met too long with the players. I had too many notes, too many tips, you know, watch too many games for the breakdown because you're just trying to do it right. You're trying to not to screw it up. You don't want to be the guy that caused a problem. And we were fortunate enough to win. And the next year, you just understand you don't need all that fluff. You got to trust your guys. They did all the right things to get here. They were professionals throughout the whole thing, and you just got to trust your players, trust the process, and stay the course in the sense of we got here doing things a certain way. Just keep doing them that way. Now, obviously, you got to adjust and be where you are as far as the game is concerned, but you can't be overbearing. You can't basically over prepare because you've already done the work. You're in the game now. Let's not screw it up.
definitely. So as we move forward, we kind of change some stuff up. We're going to do a player words association, and you just give us one word about that player and what you think about him. All right. First one, we already brought his name up. Warren Moon.
Uh, I would say professional,
Good.
immaculate, rock star. I mean, he just one of my favorite guys. Obviously, I got tons and tons of adjectives, but he professional every day. He was professional.
All right, jumping from one great to another, John Elway.
Uh, I would say tenacity.
Mm.
John was just a tough, hardcore guy. Yeah, obviously he had the great talent, but he was tenacious in his approach. He was more like a linebacker than a quarterback at times. Just the way he approached the game.
Hmm.
Um, Great guy. Fun to hang out with, but just tenacity.
Bruce Matthews.
Uh, I would just the word stalwart comes to mind. He was always, always, always doing his job. Bruce was like a crane operator. You put him over there, put him up in the crane, and he just goes to work. He's on his own. He's just doing his job, and you never had to worry about what Bruce was doing because he always did the right thing.
Hmm.
And so you knew going into every game, Bruce was going to take care and do the job that he was assigned to do.
All right, what about Webster Slaughter?
Web star. Hey, um, I would say electric.
Yes.
Webster,
Good one.
he was electric, man. He did a lot of things, man. Obviously, he was the competition for a while.
Hmm.
So it took us a little while to kind of embrace him in the locker room. But once he got in the locker room, man, and started to do the things that we knew he was capable of, man, it was exciting to watch him play, man. He was surly, he was aggressive, but he was electric because he made things happen.
Definitely, definitely. Terrell Davis.
TD, man. Uh, it's so many words. You know, I'd like to say what I could say just almost I won't say overachiever, but I would say he was a guy that he knew what he had and he just needed an opportunity. He needed a platform to prove what he was. And so um, you know, I would say hungry is the word I'd use because as a rookie, 6th round pick, nobody saw that coming.
Hmm.
The only person that knew what it was Terrell Davis,
Hmm.
and all he kept asking for was an opportunity, whether it was on special teams, returning kicks, covering kicks, whatever. And he just knew, and he kept in his own way telling us, give me an opportunity and you'll see what this really is. And so, and obviously we did that, and he proved himself. But he knew what he had going into it, and it took us a while to kind of come around to that.
All right, last one for you. Shannon Sharp.
Vocal,
Good one.
loud, boisterous, you know, cutting edge. The thing about Shannon was this. I guess the word that goes unnoticed or unknown about Shannon is how big of a competitor he was. I mean, he was extremely competitive. Shannon was the type of guy that, obviously he talks a lot, a lot. He talks a lot of trash, but he talks a lot. That's him. That's who he is. It's what makes him who he is. But also, Shannon had to deal with Romanowski every day. Romanowski and Shannon had some epic battles at
Oh.
practice, and he never backed down. And it could have been easy for Shannon to just not go when Romo was going or go in motion or get away from the action, but he never backed down. There were epic battles, and they stood tit for tat, and people just don't understand how competitive Shannon Sharp really is. You never hear him talk about being competitive. You hear him talk about all the other things, but when you peel the onion back in the core of that man, he is a extreme competitor. That's why he's successful right now. If you challenge him, he's gonna find a way to try to beat you. That's why I say about Shannon. Yeah, he's loud, and I can tell stories of all the antics. The horse head. During practice, on Fridays we would have a hat day. Shannon would wear the Broncos freaking horse logo to practice. So he was a fun-filled guy, but at the same time, he was extremely competitive.
Well, you bring up a good point that not many people think about. Like when you're practicing, having Romanowski and Sharp, the two of them probably made each other better because of that
Yeah.
competitiveness.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. To me, that was the best. That was part of the best thing about that team. We had Alfred Williams and Neil Smith and
Yep.
Keith Traylor and all those guys in there, Steve Atwater. And, offensively, we had Terrell Davis and Shannon Sharp and John Elway. And, those guys didn't like to lose. And whenever they went against each other, it was a battle. And, obviously you take care of your teammates, but it was a battle and it got surly. But the nicest thing is when we got off the plane, wherever we were, they were a unit, they were a group, and we always felt confident showing up that we had a chance to win because these guys, not only do they go against each other, they protect each other.
Frank, it's been a pleasure having you. We really appreciate you taking
Definitely.
time out, especially in the new job that you have. I'm sure you're swamped with stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna try to make it back up there for the reunion this year to check you out. So can't wait to see you again. Again, obviously.
I appreciate it, man.
And
I
just
appreciate it.
happy to have you on the show, man. Thank you so much for responding back.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for bringing us some old memories.
So that's going to do it for this week on Catching Up. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.